through the more vivid and youthful organization, less unafraid by the chains of habit, through the more ardent spirits won first by curiosity, then filled with passion for the new item, must penetrate and win the resisting and opposing thought, which will finally catch the meaning, the aim, the construction, and at last render justice to its qualities, and acknowledge whatever beauty it may contain. Franz Liszt. Warsaw was taken by Russian soldiers early in September 1831, marking the end of a 9-month national rebellion against the Tsar, who had ruled Poland as king since the Congress of Vienna 1815, and the end of the Napoleonic era in Europe. Poland had not existed as a sovereign nation since the final decade of the previous century, when it had been partitioned by Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and its rival cause fervently supported by most Frenchmen. Frédéric Francis Chopin was born on March 1, 1810, in a village called Zelazowa Wola near Warsaw, Poland, which is a country next to Germany. His family was wise, his mother was a piano player and a soprano voice singer, and his tutor was a violin and a flute player. He was named Francisque after François, his French paternal grandfather, and despite Frédéric did not live with his father, he had all the support he needed from him. There was a piano at the Chopin house. His mother started teaching piano to her daughter, Ludwika, while Frisk, how his family and friends called him, was 3 or 4 years old. Legend said that as a baby, he was always too happy to hear music, always giggling and enjoying. After, his mother started teaching him too, but Chopin mastered the instrument so rapidly that before he turned 6, he could play every melody that he had ever heard and began to improvise. He had essentially learned the piano by himself, including harmonizing melodies with simple chords, and because of this reason, his parents concluded that he should be taught music seriously and systematically. He had composed his first Polonaise when he was 7 years old and his first 2 mazurkas at 15. In contrast with Leopold Mozart in relation to his son, Chopin's father never forced Frisk into a premature musical career or into a profitable concertors. He was influenced by Johann Sebastian Bach. He loved and was inspired by his music. Chopin would used to play a Bach composition as a daily exercise when he was a kid. Later, he converted the Polonaise, a gentle 18th century Polish cadence, into heroism and even brutal violence, according to historians. In November 1817, this was the first published work, and it was called the Polonaise in G minor. It was immediately recognized as a work of art. The Warsaw Diary wrote that the composer of Distance, an 8-year-old youth, is a true musical genius. He began to be compared to Mozart 1 month after he performed a charity concert in the ballroom of the Blue Palace, also known as the Radziwiłł Palace, which was owned by Prince Stanislaw. With this, he made his first public debut as a pianist. In 1831, Frédéric Franz Chopin went to Paris. At this time, he was only 21 years old.
I have to go to Paris.
Before going, he wrote to his closest friends, "I think that I am living to forget forever about home. I think that I am living to die, and how unpleasant it must be to die elsewhere, not where one had lived." Later he regret saying, "If it were not that I could be a burden for my father now, I would return immediately. I damn the moment of my departure." With this, we can understand Chopin was missing his hometown, but he already had a life in another place. Sadly, he never went back to Poland. Chopin never married, despite many opportunities. His longest continuing relationship was with George Sand, the French novelist. Chopin met George Sand during a small artistic reception hosted by Liszt and his mistress on the evening of October 24, 1836. Chopin had been invited along with pianist Hiller to that specific event. George Sand listened intently while smoking her tiny cigar as Liszt, Hiller, and Chopin took turns at the piano as they regularly did at parties. She was dressed as a male. According to next Chopin biographer Liszt told him that he invited Chopin that evening because Sand had frequently begged him to organize a meeting after hearing about Frédéric's music. Chopin initially refused, claiming that he had no interest in an intellectual woman, but eventually he said yes. Chopin used to say, "What a repulsive woman Sand is, but is she really a woman? I am inclined to doubt it." She was also notorious for dressing like a guy, having open affairs even though she was still legally married, smoking cigarettes, and wearing trousers. Later, he invited her to an intimate dinner. Chopin said, "I now have seen her 3 times. She looked deeply into my eyes while I played. I was rather sad music, the legends of the nude. My heart danced with her, and her eyes on my eyes, summer eyes, singular eyes. What they were saying? She was leaning on the piano, and her embracing gaze fled me, flowers around us. My heart was captured. I've seen her twice afterward. Aurora, what a charming name. They were later in love for 9 years, but as I mentioned before, they never got married. What destroyed the relationship was a discussion between Solange, Sand's daughter, and Sand, in which Chopin defended Solange, and Sand took this as a betrayal, saying that Chopin was in love with her daughter. Frédéric Chopin died in October 17, 1849, in Paris. Chopin himself is believed to have died of tuberculosis, although there are no existing medical records and there is too little precise information. In his own letters and in his friends' correspondence about him, he provided solid evidence that he suffered from lung tuberculosis for 30 years. The other, Chopin, died slowly, consuming himself in the flames of his own genius. His life, unconnected with public events, was like some fact which has never been incorporated in a material body. The traces of his existence are only to be found in the works which he has left. Franz Liszt, Life of Chopin. Chopin loved flowers, so next day after his death, the whole room was full of flowers. Liszt says that there were that much flowers that, indeed, the whole room almost disappeared. I think Frédéric Chopin was one of the best composers in the Romanticism. What made him more interesting is that Bach influence made him more into a Baroque style. Some musicologists states that Chopin became a bridge between two epochs. Some of his most famous works are Nocturne, Op. 9, number 2, and the Catholic Revolution in Poland against Russian control in 1831, which is commemorated by the study number 12 of his Op. 10, dedicated to Liszt, his best friend. He could express every feeling at his works, and I personally enjoy and love his music. I would like to thank my classmates Saraí López de Lucio and Diego Marta Serna for their help in this project.